Hello, everyone. Today is November 18th, 2021. Welcome to In the Loop. I'm your host, John Pollard, Director of Education for PriceScope.com. A word about PriceScope. We are the world's largest diamond and jewelry community, teaching consumers how to buy diamonds for more than 20 years. PriceScope attracts more than 400,000 unique visitors per month, and we list nearly 1 million diamonds from the world's most recognized, respected, and reputable online sellers. These are a collection of 5-star rated companies known for honesty, best practices, and consumer protection. They also support PriceScope, so we hope you'll check them out. Our public forum has over 100,000 registered users, including an interactive community of jewelry enthusiasts who not only chat with each other, but willingly offer education and advice to new shoppers for no compensation, simply because our community likes diamonds, they like jewelry, and they like helping people. If you're not yet a PriceScope member, we invite you to register today and join the PriceScope community. In the Loop is designed to bring you information, but it's also interactive. We invite you to send in questions during the session. We'll select some of those and address them before the session concludes. If there are questions we don't get to, we'll follow up with an email. We ask you to use the Q&A tool. There is a Q&A tool rather than the chat for that purpose. Today, we'll be talking about new diamond trends in the marketplace, some associated concerns and misconceptions, and how consumers can protect themselves. The International Gemological Institute, IGI, was established nearly a half-century ago in 1975. They currently grade a wider variety of gemstones and finished jewelry in more locations around the world than any other organization. IGI pioneered a number of industry initiatives. They were the first to offer comprehensive courses covering rough diamonds, the first to incorporate lab-grown diamond education in classrooms, and the first to offer screening services and grading reports for finished jewelry, as well as authentication and appraisal services for insurance coverage, tax, and auditing purposes. 16 years ago, IGI became the first laboratory to fully assess and grade lab-grown diamonds. They're now the world leader in that space. Of the 55,000 lab-grown diamonds listed in PriceScope's search engine today, more than 53,000 were graded by IGI. That's nearly 97%. IGI issues the report of choice for new world record-holding lab-grown diamonds. They have partnerships with brands for whom they screen millions of carats of melee, separating natural from lab-grown for use in different jewelry applications. IGI recently developed a branded designer appraisal report, responding to a desire among jewelry designers to assure their clients that no lab-grown and natural diamonds were inadvertently mixed together in their branded jewelry creations. IGI is the world's first laboratory to hold ISO certification for both natural and lab-grown diamonds, and earlier this year became the first gemological laboratory to commit to carbon neutrality. My guest today has 25 years of experience as an executive in the global diamond, gem, and jewelry industry. He currently serves on the board of directors for the Nelson Mandela-inspired Diamonds Do Good initiative, as well as the board of directors for mercury-free mining. Just 2 years ago, he was named the new president of IGI North America. He is Avi Levy. Avi, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me, John. Happy to be part of this.
Well, we're glad to have you. I'm going to take the agenda here. I had an agenda that I was going to post for just a few moments.
Okay.
And then once we go over this agenda, I'll take this down so that until we need the next slide, so we won't have a shared screen. I do want to touch on all your organization's services, but I know the consumer community here is especially interested in the new lab-grown diamond phenomenon. I'd like to start there if that's okay.
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, you have 20 laboratories operating around the world. What's the volume of lab-grown diamonds IGI is seeing today as opposed to 10 years ago and as opposed to 1 year ago?
Yeah, the market's changed in 10 years, probably even a little more than 10 years since the first time we actually saw lab-grown diamonds. The volume has risen dramatically. We have been grading both loose diamonds as well as finished jewelry with lab-growns now for a number of years, and we've seen those numbers jump. There were statistics out there saying that consumption was about 3.5% of the total volume back in 2019. Today, people are saying it's going to jump to be somewhere around 6% by 2024. But I think those numbers are going to grow. I think currently the market has really taken to lab-grown diamonds. All retailers, big and small, have taken to it. The consumer is buying it. So I believe those numbers are going to grow.
So the last time we had a disruption like this reminds me of when e-commerce started becoming a thing, and you had Web 2.0, and then in the early 2000s, you had diamonds really blowing up and being sold online. And at the time, it was a fractional percent. And people were speculating on when that number would reach 10%. Now we're 20 years later, we're at a point where it hovers around that number, but it hasn't really legitimately broken that number in a big way, pandemic year notwithstanding. What do you think about lab-grown diamonds' ability to penetrate more than 10% of the total diamond and jewelry market?
I think it definitely has a chance, no doubt about it. It's a value proposition that's opened up a lot of eyes. I think there'll be a lot of growth, but I think it's going to break that 10% the way it looks like right now.
Okay. Across all of your operations, do you know what percentage of diamonds are now lab-grown as opposed to what percentage are natural?
You mean by kind of what we grade and volume-wise?
Correct.
Yeah. So I can speak for what we do here, I think in North America, and it's probably similar to our overseas labs, but today we're probably at about 30% of our volume is lab grown. And again, that is loose diamonds as well as finished jewelry, as well as screening that we do for a lot of people. You know how it is today. People want to be sure of what they're getting. They want to have their melly, their loose diamonds screened. So we've been doing that as well for a lot of different companies, from smaller manufacturers to bigger, higher end retailers as well. We do a lot of screening overseas for them. So that number, 30% is probably a good number. I'd say a good barometer.
Yeah, that's significant. And I'm glad you touched on jewelry. We're going to touch on that a little bit later in the session. So our PriceScope community has some pretty sophisticated users. So I'm going to ask a little bit of a nerdy question right now. We're not going to go full on nerd for a lot of this session, but I do need to grab a few of these questions. So most people who have studied lab-grown diamonds know that there are two different growth methods. Now, for the average consumer, that might not matter, but for the professionals, certainly, and the education that you're doing right now, that's a big deal. So HPHT, just for the elevator, is sort of replicating the way that natural diamonds formed. It's using high pressure, high temperature to basically recreate subduction that happened 100 miles below the Earth, whereas CVD is essentially separating atoms from their nuclei and allowing carbon atoms to grow in vertical layers. So they're two different processes. The question, this was one we got that was pre-submitted, what percentage are you seeing grown using the HPHT, which replicates natural conditions, versus CVD, which is much more of a high technical solution?
Well, I don't think I have exact percentages about if HPHT is more or if CVD is more, but I think CVD is definitely in the lead right now. It's probably a little bit, it's just out there more, I think, in the community in terms of the growth. HPHT is a little bit more of a tedious process that it goes through. Not everybody has the reach to use it as much as the CVD growers or the manufacturers right now. But HPHT is definitely growing. One area that HPHT definitely is larger than CVD is in the melly, right? We're seeing all the melly that's being produced today is straight HPHT product. But I should actually add on, CVD is definitely coming along. But right now, especially in melly, HPHT is in the lead. But overall, I believe CVD probably still ahead of the curve.
Okay, well, I understand part of that is because the HPHT process uses presses that take an enormous amount of real estate, whereas CVD doesn't take necessarily the same real estate.
Yeah, some of those machines in HPHT, they're amazing. To me, they look like little spaceships when you look at them.
All right, I'm going to take down the agenda now that everybody's had a chance to look at it. And so we can focus a little bit more on what we're talking about. Next question for you. What have you seen over the years when it comes to preferences, like just in terms of the popular weights, popular color and clarity combinations, et cetera?
Well, preferences, I think, are still changing. You know, this whole lab-grown diamond phenomenon, it keeps on growing. It keeps changing. You know, when it first came into the market, I think a lot of people didn't actually know what to expect. But I think today we're much smarter. We've learned a lot. We see that customers are very savvy out there, especially the US customer. They are looking for value. They're looking for alternatives. They're looking for choices. Lab-grown diamonds came in and helped give us those choices. It started with a lot of single stones, right? Usually that's the way the diamond jewelry market starts. So a lot of growers started producing halves, 3/4, 1 carats, 2 carats. Today they're going up to 3, 4, 5, 6 carat, in some instances, even larger than that. So I think the preferences are changing. They're growing. They're getting larger for the single stones. But now today, I think 2 years into it, I would say that we see much more jewelry coming through. So a lot of melody, a lot of smaller stones. And I think when customers see the jewelry growing so much, they see a tremendous value there, because a lot of jewelry that was made in the US, especially in the commercial side, was more I1, I2, I2, I3 and down. That supply, I think, on the natural side is getting lower and lower. And we're seeing now that a customer has an alternative to buy a better quality stone in the jewelry.
So you're seeing like very little I1, I2 in lab grown. Is that the case? You're seeing more SI plus?
Definitely. I mean,
Okay.
The material itself is definitely, it's a healthier material. It's definitely SI and better.
So I'm going to call out to one of the PriceScope stakeholders, Gary Holloway. He has a theory he's been sharing for some time now. He believes that, like what we're saying here, there's no I1, I2 necessarily in the lab grown, and yet the price point makes it appropriate for entry level mall stores, department stores, commercial outlets. Gary believes that it's a possibility that those kinds of jewelry pieces will replace low quality natural diamonds in malls, which could eventually drive natural diamond prices and values even higher.
Yeah, I think Gary has a point. He's pretty much right on. When you do put a lower quality of an I2 or I2, I3 product next to the lab grown, I think customers are going to see the difference. And especially for those guys who are budget conscious consumers today, it gives them another great option for them. So it fits the bill.
Okay. I have a callback question about that from a consumer, but I'm going to wait on that one. Meanwhile, I want to get to, you mentioned the USA, you put it at the forefront. How do USA buying trends compare to trends in other countries, specifically India, which is the #1 jewelry market?
Yeah, I think the world still follows the US. And this kind of goes back to some of my experience before I got to IGI, being on the wholesale manufacturing side, dealing with a lot of retailers. The US usually sets the trends. Each country has its own, I guess, preferences and likes and all of that. But the USA usually follows a trend. And again, lab grown came in and gave the US customer another option, another choice, and it's definitely resonating. But the natural diamonds, I think, are also benefiting from this. I think the whole market is actually benefiting from lab-grown diamonds. Not to say that the natural diamonds were stale and all that, but lab-grown diamonds came in, something new, something different, and it brought a lot of attention to the market. It's a product that's made through technical ways, right? It's grown in a laboratory environment. It's got to go through specific processes, different than the natural side. And now that we are more, I guess, accepting of it, it's really taking off. The consumer is liking it. But we're also seeing that there is more of a desire for natural diamonds. So I think lab-grown diamonds is doing its job by bringing some new attention to the industry and kind of setting up different lanes, a lane for lab-grown and a lane for natural diamonds. I think desire and demand for natural has really spiked this year, and I think that will continue. So I think both sides of that equation are going to benefit into the future.
Okay, I listened to, just so you know, because this resonates, I listened to a podcast you did some time ago. You used the term dual channel legitimacy. And so that's essentially what I'm hearing from you. Can we speak for a minute about pre-pandemic to post-pandemic? Because it's interesting, pre-pandemic, I think we were seeing a situation where consumers were not necessarily going for diamonds. And then suddenly, we had the pandemic, and man, you can in-store and the Knot, and there's a college in London that all published how the pandemic made a lot of people rethink their values, and suddenly social, emotional gifting, being close with somebody became even more important. And as a result, we've seen this huge rebound in the jewelry sector, and especially in both the lab-grown diamond and natural diamond sector. I guess my question would be, how do lab-grown and natural both fit into that? How do you see the pandemic bringing people back in both of those sectors? Doesn't that seem odd?
No, I'll tell you why I think so. I mean, I think it's amazing that people continue to gravitate toward jewelry. I think the PriceScope community, as well as other people, are going to appreciate that. We all know, being in the industry, being professionals, that diamond jewelry or jewelry in itself, it's a feel-good purchase. It touches on our emotions. It makes both people who are either giving and then receiving the jewelry, they feel good. It's a loved one to another. It's to a friend. It's to mark an occasion. It's for all those good times in our lives that we call out by buying a piece of jewelry and gifting it. Yes, during the pandemic, that whole exchange and feeling, I think, got stronger. And people went to jewelry because it made them feel good. And we needed that. We always need that. We always want to feel good. And I think that's what jewelry does for people. And we've seen that over the years, if it's just the past 2 years or going back to my experience of 25 years. I think it's always going to resonate. Jewelry resonates with people. It makes them feel loved, makes them feel valued. And those are important feelings.
So then I think you're absolutely right. One trend that was interesting to me, and I'm not sure if this is in your bailiwick, but I wanted to mention it at least and get your opinion. So, the PriceScope community is a very digital community. They're used to, and they have no problem spending $50,000, $100,000 online in some cases, for single purchases. And it's just because they've become very comfortable about it. Now, that's not your average shopper. Like the average shopper in the United States, there's still they demonstrate that they really want to buy over the counter. Well, in 2020, they couldn't do that. And we saw pivots by a number of different sellers that were really smart. They started selling online. Even Tiffany and Company put a ring builder on their website. So we saw a lot of change. Has IGI noticed, basically, how have you empowered online buying of the diamonds that you grade?
I empower that. Okay. Well, I mean, the online phenomenon is growing, right? I remember 10 years ago, we sat with some retailers and they had no idea about what's going to happen online. They saw sales happening at very low price points and then it started spiking. As time goes along, yes, we're all about change, we're all about advancing, and that's exactly what's going on. We're all changing. And I think the PriceScope customer savvy, right? And looking to grow and appreciate the transparency and appreciate what's going on. The world is changing, and I think we are exactly where we should be right now. We're growing and we're learning.
Well, there's no doubt. I gave the figures before. It's staggering. The lab-grown diamonds, just the volume that you're doing is certainly recognizable. We have a couple of different PriceScope sellers who carry different lab-grown products, and there's a lot of your stuff in the sits. And so we have a keen interest in learning about it. What I wanted to say was, wanted to mention here was the fact that you print actual reports that have the same security features, that has the seal and all that kind of stuff for lab-grown diamonds. You treat them the same way you treat all other diamonds and gemstones. That's correct, right?
For sure. I mean, we are here at the end of the day to protect the end consumer. The end consumer is buying a piece of jewelry. It is our responsibility to do the due diligence to give them all of the information that they're looking for. Lab-grown diamond, natural diamonds, pearls, jewelry, across the board. That's what we do.
Cool. So I've got a fun question then. This is about, so now we've got you in the SIFT selling all of these things. And of course you grade finished jewelry, you grade pearls. Now, here's a question. She asks, if some consumers choose natural diamonds over lab grown because those consumers perceive natural to have greater luxury value, and since there's really no way on the finger to tell the difference, how would IGI predict that natural diamond wearers who care about such things will telegraph to others somehow that the diamond on their finger is natural. You have any ideas about that?
No, that's a tough question. That's a tough question. It's interesting. How do they telegraph it? That's a good one. I mean, that's up to the individual, I think, at the end of the day, right? How
should we come up with a specialized setting that can only be set with a natural diamond, and maybe another one for those who want to prove that they're cool with lab-grown diamonds, like this setting will only ever hold a lab-grown diamond?
Look, at first I think people, you hear it all the time, right? What if you ask men if they give their wives a lab-grown diamond, how are they going to feel? I think those walls have been coming down, and they will continue to come down. Again, it goes back to setting up two lanes, right? You have a customer, they want a natural diamond. Well, that's great. They will continue to want a natural diamond, and that's what they want. And then you have the other consumer, be it the Gen Z or a value conscious customer, a little bit older, who sees an opportunity to buy a larger size, a better quality, a bigger piece of jewelry. So it's a hard question to answer. I think it's all, about what people's choices are, and they shouldn't be, I don't know if they have to tell people. It is what it is. It's their purchase. They should be happy with what they're spending money on.
Well, my experience, by the way, is that if somebody has like a 3-carat D flawless diamond and they want people to know that's what it is, they're generally going to go ahead and find a way to tell them.
Exactly. So, I'm just going to say they're going to tell you. Correct. That 3-carat, that 5-carat, or whatever it is, for sure.
But in terms of IGI, just to summarize, what you're doing is you are treating all gemstones, and I want to get to finished jewelry ultimately here, but it's its own topic, so I want to set it aside. Yeah. But you're basically treating everything the same, whether it is a small piece of jewelry at a department store counter, or it is the world record holding lab-grown diamond that just came out, or it's a Golconda stone that Sotheby's is going to auction. You're going to treat them all the same.
We're going to treat them all the same. We're going to tell it like it is and tell you what's in the piece of jewelry, or tell you what the diamond looks like.
Okay. Final question. By the way, this is from the same consumer who had the cool telegraph question. Sure. How does IGI think that lab-grown diamonds may impact, and she says women's spending habits, I could say women's, men's, whomever, but I think this is she phrases it a good way. How would it impact women's spending habits now that 2-carat lab-grown diamond costs less than some purses and shoes that professional women buy on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think that, again, it goes back to choice. I know women, they love their shoes, they love their purses, and they love their jewelry, they love their diamonds. So now it just gives a consumer to add more on the diamond side. I mean, if it's a 2-carat diamond or 2-carat diamond jewelry piece, doesn't matter. I think it's great that consumers have another option.
That's exactly what's happening. Do you think that there will be enough volume, enough supply to support the demand that's going to, if demand keeps increasing, what about your position on supply?
Interesting question. So right now, I know I can comfortably say that the industry is chasing supply, which is probably, that's where we want to be, right? That's ideal. Merchandise is selling, the retailer is selling, the consumer is buying. We need to produce more. So the supply chain has to catch up. I think it will over time. There are some people say, oh, it's so easy to grow this stone. We could do it in my garage and all of that. Yeah, okay, it's not that easy. We know, we're pros, right? We know it's not that easy. It is a meticulous process with a lot of attention to detail, a lot of patience, a lot of diligence, a lot of investment of time.
Sure.
But I think with time, yeah, we're definitely going to get better. Supply will catch up. But right now, I think it's great to actually chase. I think being in the jewelry industry, we know when we're chasing something, that means we have something interesting, like there's a winner formulating here.
Awesome. Okay. That's going to wrap the first section, the trends section. Thank you for your insight, and thank you for tackling questions which are speculative, I would say. They're fun. Let's go ahead, and I want to move into some concerns and misconceptions. Let's deal with misconceptions first. So there continue to be arguments about whether lab-grown diamonds are sustainable, green, eco-friendly, et cetera. Where does IGI stand on that topic?
Yeah, that's a big topic today. It's one that we are interested in. We here, IGI has actually, I think, taken the lead on this whole sustainability process. we're all looking to see how we can make the world a better place and all of that. But when it comes to lab-grown diamonds, though, I think it's better left to the professionals to determine how a process or a factory or the supply chain is adhering to their sustainable processes and practices.
Is there such a thing as a sustainable lab grown? No, first of all, for the audience, for the casual consumer, let me just say, it's well known that in most lab grown production, an enormous amount of energy is required. And
Correct.
so if fossil fuels are burned, then it's not really a sustainable situation. However, there are some companies using hydroelectric power. So it's here and there. And Avi, you told me before that there is a sustainability certification. So are there sustainable lab-grown diamonds now?
Yes, there are. There is a company called SCS, so I think you mentioned, they're pros in this process. They have done different areas, different companies, different industries, coffee, apparel, and different areas. Again, they've certified, so they know the process. Recently, about a year or so now, they are in the jewelry industry, and they are certain growers and manufacturers who they have labeled to be sustainable. WD Diamonds comes to mind, Green Rocks Diamonds comes to mind. Those are two that we are working with that have gone through the process with SCS to become sustainable. And it is a process for sure.
Will you actually, if they go through and SCS, I know that the 007 standard, because it's easy to remember, they've got a 007 standard, and actually it's natural diamond producers can actually take that on too, right? It's not just for lab grown diamonds. This is for natural or lab grown. Is that something that you would be including on a grading report if it can be proven by the producer?
Yes. If we can go through the steps together with the producer and through SCS to make sure that these diamonds were produced in a sustainable manner, we have a logo, we attach it to our report to verify it.
Okay, that's great to know.
Yeah.
So because that is an area of consumer consciousness. Now, I'm going to get into a topic being debated within the lab-grown community. It's treatments, the word treatments. So for the consumer community, and we've got great experienced consumers here, but for anybody new, just want to let you know, in the world of jewelry and gemstones and diamonds, historically for a century, selling diamonds, natural diamonds, the way that Mother Earth grew them, natural gemstones, the way Mother Earth grew them, that's been a thing. Like that's a status symbol. Well, over time, of course, we've learned to enhance the color in colored gemstones. We've learned to drill inclusions out of diamonds, and all these come under the label treatments. There are treatments to improve color. There are treatments to improve clarity, et cetera, et cetera. There are treatments to stabilize colored gemstones that actually really need that stabilization. But the bottom line is this: a treated gemstone in the high status jewelry community has always been seen as sort of a step down. So now, within the lab-grown diamond community, because technology is getting better, it used to be that the diamonds would be grown, the lab-grown diamonds would be grown, and then they would generally go through a treatment process, some kind of an annealing or bleaching or pressure or temperature process to improve their color. And it used to happen a lot. Now, technology has gotten to the point where there are completely colorless lab-grown diamonds, which are produced, quote, as grown. But there are still a lot of them, and from what I understand, it's over half of them that have a post-growth treatment, a PGT, meaning that they have some kind of additional process, gone to reduce their color. So, is there actually greater value to a diamond that finishes colorless as grown than there is to a diamond that finished with some sort of tint and then went through another process in order to remove its tint?
Good question. But I think, honestly, it's not for us to judge on terms of the value. Our role, IGI, our role is to just really report the news, tell you what it is. We try to be as transparent as we can be. And that's what we've always been doing. Be it treatments, be it just identifying a VVS stone or an SI, calling out a crystal or a certain kind of PK. That's what we do. We tell it like it is. We tell you what we see. So if we detect the post-growth treatment, we're going to report it. We're going to put it in our reports. We're going to let the customer know. We're going to let the manufacturer know. And then I guess it's up to them to determine the pricing structure, and all of that.
Okay, that's a good reset. So essentially what you're saying is you're not there to say as grown is better or the same or worse. You're there to say, here's what we have. Oh, and by the way, want to make sure that our audience knows that you report the growth process. You report whether it was an HPHT or a CVD process. And then if you will also report it's as grown, and you will report if there are post-growth treatments, correct?
Yes, it's important for us to tell it like we see it. So what we see, we report. So yes, we are telling.
Do you know what the volume is that are treated as opposed to as grown right now?
I think you said it a little bit over 50%, and that's probably true. It is probably still that high. Okay. But I think as technology gets better, we will see a change there as well. Ever since we started putting the description on the reports, we've actually seen HPHT stones or as grown get larger in terms of what's been coming to the laboratory.
Well, it is a technology. I mean, it's going to continue to get better, I would think.
100%.
So I would also mention to the audience, if you want to see what we're talking about in the PriceScope search engine, you can find IGI graded diamonds. You can go and look, and in the comments section, you will see they mention what the growth process is, and they also mention whether it's as grown or a PGT. Okay, I like that. You're reporting the news. You're letting everybody else decide what to do with the news.
Exactly.
Cool. So I have your colleague Susan sent me a couple of photos, and I wanted to get this up because the other thing that's kind of exciting is the fancy colored diamond scene right now. Let me see how I can do this. I need to share my screen. That's what I need to do. Stand by. There it is. Look at this delicious spectacle right here. So I'm showing Avi a 101 carat fancy vivid blue heart brilliant that was produced by one of your very sophisticated fancy colored diamond producers. I'm showing the report now. So that's one. I've got 3 examples here that I can show. The next one, and by the way, there is, I would just say, I put this picture up big so you can see it, but when I was sent the grading report, there's actually a picture on your grading report of the diamond. So you take a photograph in the lab and you put it on the report. I thought that was neat.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool, of the actual stone. I mean, look how pretty these stones are.
Yeah, well, this is the crazy thing. So this is a fancy vivid yellow. It's a carat 04, cushion modified brilliant, obviously, and it's fancy vivid, and yet it's a lab grown stone. And those levels of saturation have been hard to reach in the past. Like, it's been easy to reach the darker and deeper in some ways, but getting to these fancy vivid, fancy intense lighter colors. And I saved this one till last. I want you to talk about this one, Avi, if you've seen it. If you've seen and held this one, I want to know about it. Tell me about that.
Oh, yeah. Of course I have. Look, besides sitting here at IGI, I'm a true fan of the industry. I grew up in the industry. I'm going to continue to grow in this industry. When I see things like this, I get interested. I'm happy to see it. This really shows the creativity, of what you can do when you have some good ammunition to play with. So this particular manufacturer, he does an amazing job on these colors. I'm a fan of colors. I think they're amazing. They're pretty. This cross, it was cut. It's one piece. I believe that's the 10 carat cross that we saw, right?
Yes. 10 carat 16. Yes, sir.
10 carat, one piece of diamond to get that color. It's amazing to me. It gives you a whole new arena, new area to play in.
Okay. You have no idea how much this would sell for, do you?
I don't. I'm sorry. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember. But I mean, this goes to show you what you can do with the lab grown. I mean, the technology. You can. I guess you can grow according to certain needs and certain wants. It's like a true custom business. I actually know that this manufacturer who we do a lot of work with, he's got some great things coming up. So I think PriceScope community, the consumers and things, they're going to see some really nice things coming along.
Well, we do love our fancy colors. Like, I think I speak on behalf of the community. And this is so unique. And by the way, just for the nerds out there, the reason this is possible is because of the way that CVD is produced. It's cubic, and so it's well suited to a shallow piece like this, whereas natural diamond rough in its octa and dodecahedron state, it's much better suited to deep diamonds, so there's less waste.
Yeah. So here's an example. The manufacturer, his name, the company is called Fire Diamonds, and he puts a lot of attention into detail on the colors. He's really, from what I understand, he's worked very hard behind the scenes to perfect his process, and it shows. It really shows.
Yeah, it's really stunning and beautiful stuff. So yeah, look forward to hearing more. Maybe we should do an entire webinar just on some of the stuff that's coming through the lab that you guys get to see that is brand new that nobody's seen before.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff. That's a great idea.
Okay, well, we will try and put that on the calendar. So I've got one more question on this topic before we get to the concern that I think is most relevant to PriceScope.
Okay.
One of our members wanted me to ask this: will IGI start identifying HPHT grown type 2B diamonds and actually printing that they're 2B specifically rather than just stating when they're type 2?
Yes and no, no and yes. Identifying trace amounts of type 2B is a very long and tedious process. I think it takes a lot more time to pick up on the 2B, on the B part, because they're traces, right? It doesn't run throughout the stone. So you've got to really look far and deep to identify and make sure that everything is present. We go through Ramans and IRs and different technology to get to it. So it does take more on our part to make sure. So because of the extensive process and it takes, like I said, a long time to go through it. It's a service that we offer, but it's got to be asked for at the beginning, and we've got to know about it beforehand. It's kind of almost impossible to go through each stone to get to the end to find out unless.
Yeah, so this would be an add-on service, basically.
It would be an add-on service.
Okay. Yeah. So, and I'll let me tell you that it's a fair. The question is fair coming from the PriceScope community. It's very similar to a question I'm going to have a little bit later on about reporting of certain facets and things like that. The PriceScope community is used to having whatever information they need to make an online purchase decision. So this one comes from, when you see type 2, okay, if you're looking at the diamond in your hand and you can analyze it in person, and you can see if there's a blue tinge or not, because some of that, that 2B does have sign of a blue tinge to it.
Yes.
But of course, if you're looking at just a grading report, well, you can't tell that. So then I would say probably the online seller needs to be able to declare that. Just like, no lab declares iClean. No major grading lab says this is iClean. They'll say this is an SI1, this is a VS2, and it goes this and that way. And the reason that no lab declares whether it's iClean, forgive me for a small rant here, but our grading processes were set up in the 1950s. The whole idea behind diamond grading was that the jeweler would present the stone. The lab report was secondary. It was to support what the jeweler was saying. Do you see, IGI this is why they graded it SI1, as I told you it was. But you put the grading report out there as a backup after you've shown the stone. I mean, there's no way that Richard Lidicote ever imagined that people would surf thousands of grading reports without even seeing the diamonds, trying to pick one that way. So I think first of all, it's a great question from one of our community members here who's super interested in this stuff. And at the same time, I understand your answer is essentially, look, to do that is really time intensive. It's self-evident if you're in person. We can do it on request, but it's not something that we can necessarily do for every stone without some cost increase.
True.
Okay. So then the last in the concerns and misconceptions, the last concern is the one that I believe is most relevant to the PriceScope community. There are constant worries about lab-grown diamonds and natural diamonds getting mixed up and salted together, particularly in Meli. In fact, on my last visit to China, which was a number of years ago, it was becoming a huge concern in that country. And I know that that's when brands started approaching IGI and saying, look, we need you to sort through. We've got Meli here, but we need you to sort it for us and be the authority. So should customers here in the US be concerned that settings they're buying might somehow have been salted with lab grown as well as natural Meli?
Well, I think by having IGI, I guess, as on the back end checking, we will help to make sure that the jewelry does not get out there in the wrong way. We do thousands, tens of thousands of pieces of jewelry. I think we're at millions and millions of stones of melody that we grade throughout all of the IGI offices. We do it for a lot of the high-end companies who are selling, VS and VVS goods, and they want to make sure that their goods are exactly what they're supposed to be, natural. So they trust us to put it through our processes to make sure that everything is correct. So I think consumers should know that we are putting in our due diligence to make sure it is what it is. We're also constantly updating our processes. Why? With technology growing, people are always trying to update their technology. So there can be stones that people are putting through either knowingly or not, that are not what they're supposed to be. I can't tell you last year how many stones we saw that, I mean, maybe this is going in a different direction, but it's good for, I think, everyone to know that there are people out there who are actually taking even moissanites and coating them with CVD, trying to make them appear as to be lab grown. So it takes an IGI with our sophisticated technology and machines to make sure that we are telling a consumer or a customer that your stones are what they are supposed to be. Even more recently, we've seen a lot of growers actually tell us sometimes that they're updating their technology. So sometimes what they do in the stone can not trick a machine, but can create a doubt. So we here in the laboratories, we have 4 or 5 or even 6 different ways to have backups to make sure that we're giving the right information.
So really, the major labs are the only ones that can say decisively. And I'm not trying to create any kind of a fire here, because I think that brands are protecting themselves. If you're buying one of the great brands that we vet all of our vendors on PriceScope. They're all extremely pro, and they are all about consumer protection. So I want to be very clear, Avi. I'm not trying to create a concern there. What I'm saying is this: I know that IGI was approached by eBay India, and eBay India said, "Look, we've got this huge concern. Can you do this service where whoever the seller is, all of our sellers on eBay India, they can pass pieces through you, and you can just basically give them a green light and say it's what you're saying it is." So in terms of secondary market, and I'm segueing into consumer protection now. In terms of secondary market, I think IGI is very interesting in terms of enthusiasts and people trading on eBay, people buying at estate sales. My understanding, the IGI philosophy for a long time now has been very inclusive of finished jewelry, which is not the approach that most major labs have taken. In fact, your inclusiveness of jewelry, your teaching of jewelry design classes, and then your staging of jewelry design competitions for the last 2 years now. You had the IGI Jewel Contest during the pandemic, which resulted in some just stunning designs. Anybody can, if you want to, any of our audience want to Google IGI Jewel design competition or design contest, what we'll do is we can email it out. And then IGI Expressions, which just ended recently, where you had 6 winners.
Out of the box designs, for sure.
You're going to fabricate. You had judges, Katarina Perez, David Gottlieb, others, and you're actually fabricating the winners' pieces and exposing them, connecting them with manufacturers. Okay. It's something that sets you apart from other institutions, and it's super interesting to me. Can you explain the philosophy behind your choice to be so involved in finished jewelry as well as loose gemstones?
Yeah, for sure. So finished jewelry finished jewelry is the majority of where all the diamonds end up, right? So that is what the consumers are buying at the end of the day. Even a single diamond that they buy, they're putting it in mounting, and it becomes a finished piece of jewelry. Or 20 or 30 or 100 stones of melody jewelry. Yes, so jewelry is the gateway for all the jewelry to hit the consumer. So it's important that we protect the consumer by making sure that we grade those pieces correctly. Yeah, and it's interesting that you brought up eBay. Such a big company like eBay, yes, they trust IGI to make sure we're doing the job, to make sure that we tell you the stones are natural, lab grown, or whatever they may be.
Okay, that's very fair. So then let's talk about jewelry reports. I know you have an identification report, which essentially it grades the entire piece. It has the precious metal content, side stone, melee details, along with primary stones. And then you have an appraisal report. Now, the appraisal report is essentially the same service, but on request, you provide an estimated value for insurance coverage or auditing. Now, it's a great thing in theory. However, one of our community members asked a question, which is fair. He asked why those estimated values that have sometimes appeared on the appraisal reports have been historically high compared to how much the piece might actually be selling for. Can you comment about that perception and how you approach valuation back then and the current status, the whole 9 yards?
Yeah, so the appraisal side of business. Yes, so very interesting part of the business. So we're basically there, the customer will come and they'll send us a piece of jewelry for an appraisal service, generally because they want to have their piece appraised for insurance purposes. And by the way, we do work in liaison with some of the insurance companies to make that process easier for them, like Jewelers Mutual or Zillion, just to name two of them. So we do the appraisal process here. It's a tedious process. Why? Well, retail is changing all the time. I mean, I think I remember it's got to be almost probably 30 years ago, or at least 20 years ago, where jewelers were selling pieces for keystone, double keystone, and even in some instances, triple keystone.
Avi, can you explain keystone real quick?
Sure. So they're buying a piece of jewelry at $100. And if it's keystone, they're selling it for $200. Double keystone would be $300, and so on and so forth. And these are the retail values that stores were putting out there. And that was going on for a long time. As retail, I guess we'll say, grew and became more mature, online came into things in a big way. The retailers, the stores actually had to be more competitive. So there's still probably some keystone and double keystone going on, but because of the online jewelry presence, those numbers have changed over the years. So we've had to change as well. So historically, if a customer had a specific issue, we can address those issues as they come up, and we can explain how we get to those values. But, you know, on our side, we've got to be on it all the time because things are changing, laws are changing, retail is changing, manufacturing processes are changing, so prices change. So it's a pretty tedious process on our end.
So basically it's in flux, and values have changed. Clearly values have changed over time. I remember Keystone as well, and the internet changed a lot of that.
And the prices change. I mean, let's go back for a second. We talked about natural diamonds earlier. Those prices have jumped this year, right? So if we appraised something about a year ago and appraising the same piece today, there's a different value as well.
Do you have problems with undervaluing as well as the risk of overvaluing?
Of course. Yeah, exactly for that reason, because exactly for that reason. So it's our job to be on top of the market, to understand the trends, and to get direct pricing we work with vendors also just to kind of gauge the market and see where things are. Okay.
So you mentioned the jewelry specific. So you work with Jewelers Mutual, you work with Zillion. Are they accepting your appraisal reports?
They definitely are. We're working in tandem with them.
Okay. And then in terms of grading loose stones,
yes,
that's something that you're doing that is basically similar to, I don't want to put you on, basically it's the same as other major laboratories. There's a lot of major laboratories, well, several of them anyway, and they're grading loose stones. But in terms of the finished jewelry, basically, whether it's a department store trinket or the designer appraisal service that you're now doing it, you're basically just trying to reach the end consumer with your jewelry identification report, and you're providing the appraisal value upon request.
Yes, we are. And we're servicing smaller customers, larger customers, smaller retailers to the big retailers, from that one mom and pop shop somewhere to the larger branded store that we see on Fifth Avenue or somewhere. So yes, we grade all types of jewelry.
Okay. So we're close to we're supposed to be taking questions here, I think 1 minute ago, but it's been a good conversation. I want to try to land the plane here. In terms of the PriceScope consumer community, you probably know this, they tend to compartmentalize those things. This is a loose diamond kind of place. if you get what I mean.
Sure.
With that said, the jewelry identification report is an interesting thing. If somebody's buying a pre-loved piece from another person, a pre-owned piece, but agree that it should be screened, then a consumer could send that piece to IGI to get the full either screening or the full identification and listing of the setting and the metal and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Our services are varied, and we try to take care of customers' requests as best as we can. So appraisals or ID reports, identification reports, we do everything.
Okay. And did you have I know that you mentioned that it was around $100, $125 for something that's around 1 carat. Is that about right?
That is definitely right there.
Okay. So we can provide for PriceScope at some time. If there's interest in the community, we can provide them with some kind of a fee schedule, and you wouldn't mind?
I think so. Yeah, for sure. When it comes to the appraisals and the ID reports, we can definitely have something.
It's the same price as a jewelry identification report, the same price, or is an appraisal and add-on with you want them to estimate a value for insurance?
Yeah, appraisal is definitely a bit of an add-on.
Okay. We'll get that information. So then let's see if basically I'd like you to talk for just a minute. If I have not covered anything that you would like to cover, Avi, I think we've been through the trends. I think we've been through some statistics. I think we've been through concerns. I think we've been through the jewelry focus that you have, which may be of interest to a jewelry community. So have I omitted anything that you would want to bring up?
No, I think we've covered a lot of different things. I think the PriceScope community is a very educated community. We're happy to be on with you today and be part of the community. And we're looking to grow and instill our confidence across the board.
Okay. I'm getting some information about questions from the chat, which is great because we are now at the Q&A.
Let's do our best.
Let me first look at my notes because I had a couple of questions.
Yeah, what else did we forget?
Okay, this one regards proportions on your round brilliant grading reports. Okay. And I think I could probably anticipate the answer, but why doesn't IGI currently report star percentages and lower half percentages?
Yeah, I mean, that's more information, trying to be as transparent as we can. I think this is also a work in progress. You know, we've had certain parameters and certain ways that we have been grading and doing reports over the years. It's based on information that we feel is relevant to share. But we're constantly looking at what we do and how we do it. And in terms of the transparency part, we're looking to see what else and we can be sharing that people want to know about. So if this is an area that we feel should be looked at a little bit stronger, we will. And we'll see how we can report this into the future. I'm not going to say that we will. I'm not going to say that we won't, but it's something we'll definitely look at to see what makes sense. So it's a work in progress.
Yeah, and it's a callback also, I think, to, labs not reporting eye clean. It's important for some consumers to have that information to make their decisions, either that or some proof of performance. But this, again, the PriceScope community is somewhat compartmentalized in that they want to be able to buy online. So I'm just going to make a pitch for our community and say the more information that you can get on those reports from a cut reporting standpoint, and the more teeth you can put behind it in terms of demonstrating performance, the better, just for our community. And I guess probably for the future of online sales, since I don't think online sales are going to stop growing. I think they're just going to occur more and more. So
yeah, for sure.
The more information, the better, in our opinion. Here's some quick questions from the chat. First of all, can you explain that lab-grown diamonds are not fake diamonds?
I think, yeah, for sure. I mean, they're definitely not fake diamonds. They have the same chemical composition. They definitely are not fake diamonds. I mean, that's pretty much it.
They're not fake. So they are real in every way. And I've explained this a zillion times too. By the way, we have an education page on PriceScope. If you go to the education section and look at our page on lab-grown diamonds, anybody who wants to understand exactly what they are, it's a great page. So
yeah, I think that's important. The education part, of course, is important. We didn't really talk about that. I guess I should have talked about that a little bit more. IGI has put more of a focus on education. I guess, again, lab-grown diamonds helped to bring education back into the industry. Years ago in the early 2000s, a lot of stores were very adamant about educating their sales associates so they could better tell the story to the consumers. Business going up and going down. Some people took them out of their budgets. Today, we are getting a lot more requests for education and seeing how important it is. And we're trying to do our part in teaching the companies and the sales associates so they're better equipped to speak directly to the customer, to the end consumer. If we're talking about transparency, that's how it starts and that's how it ends. Education starts. We teach the sales associates. We're actually also teaching buyers out there so that, like I said, better equipped to handle the questions coming from the consumers.
And I know to speak to that, you are the largest educator in India and I believe in China at this point.
We are. They're doing a great job there. They're doing a really good job there. And it's carrying on here into the States right now. So we're looking at different ways on how to educate, from traditional face-to-face, which was limited because of the pandemic, to webinars, to currently we've also, we're developing a true online program for jewelry diamond education. And I think that's going to be exciting. It's going to be big in 2022. We're very excited about it. We've shown a few key customers, they're interested, and we're seeing how we're going to grow it going forward.
I've always wanted to see an array of online courses available for consumer enthusiasts to take, and whether they dip their toe into it or basically they want to learn full-blown everything, including all the nerdy stuff. Is that something?
No, I think that's important. I think we are going to get into that as well. Over the years, when I was younger, a lot of people were coming into the jewelry industry. We're finding today, over the past 5, 7, 10 years, not as many. How do we make them come back? I mean, let's face it, right? We're all in this jewelry industry. We love it, right? We're all lifers, we're all professionals. But how do we attract new people? I think it starts with education. We need to teach the people, to show them how special our industry is. What does it offer? Why does it offer? So we're actually looking for different collaborations on how to teach into the consumer end as well.
Okay, so we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. Thank you, by the way. That's great, and I look forward to more. And so this question dovetails with that one a little bit, because I've been fortunate enough to be consulted by a number of different authorities, including IGI, just basically on the topic of cut, this and that and the other thing. The question here is, are IGI standards for top cut quality equal to GIA or to GRS, or are they completely different standards, a third way to grade cut quality?
No, I think we're on par. I don't think, I'm not going to say better or worse.
It's a trick question though, on par with GIA or with AGS.
Yeah. Look, GIA and AGS, great companies, great reputations. But I would say that today, yes, we are on par. Our customers trust us. We give them the right information, and we're trying to do the right job, of course.
Okay, we're talking specifically about cut quality.
Yeah, so cut quality, actually, we are, I would say, yes, we're up to par. We are actually looking to see how we can take the cut grading further, especially on the whole fancy side of stones. So all our labs are actually discussing it right now, putting different parameters, different processes, and different numbers together. And hopefully in the near future, we'll come out with some more news about that, especially to fancies. Okay.
We had a comment just come in. I saw a video tour of the lab would be super interesting.
Yeah, for
I know
sure.
You've got some proprietary stuff. They won't do it at the other labs, largely because it's all proprietary, but it would be cool to kind of see something like that.
I think there's something we can do without showing, yes, the proprietary parts that we cannot show. But yeah, I think definitely be interesting to show a little bit as much as we can.
Okay. Well, I think we are basically at time. Here's the thing. There are some questions that came in that we didn't necessarily get to. Avi, you wouldn't mind if I talk to you offline and then we provide those questions to the PriceScope community? Would that be okay?
I was just going to recommend that. No problem. Put your questions together and we will definitely get back to you with answers.
Okay, for those of you in the community, you know where to watch. Rocky Talkie is the forum Diamond Discussion. And for anybody who joined us from outside the community, PriceScope.com. It's in the forum section, the online forum, and it's called Rocky Talkie. It's also called Diamond Discussion, and you'll find a wealth of stuff in there. Participation is free, by the way. Jump in, join us. We would love to have you. Avi, thanks. There's so much to cover here. I feel like we covered 50% of what I wanted to cover.
Yeah, I was just thinking that might be the same thing. So yeah. We could do it again whenever you guys
Yeah,
want.
maybe we have another edition, but I want to thank you for your focus on A to Z, including jewelry. I think that's super cool. And thanks for sharing your insights so willingly today. We certainly appreciate it.
You are very welcome. Much appreciated to have me on again, and looking forward to doing more of this with you guys. Thank you for the community as well.
Thank you, Avi.